Candy corn, that classic triangular candy with a white tip, orange middle, and yellow base, has been a Halloween favorite in America for over a century. One candy company alone produces about 4.3 billion pieces each year, with Americans eating around 20 million pounds annually. Join me on a tour of the candy corn manufacturing plant and watch how it's being made. One fact that might surprise you is that the candy's fluffiness comes from an ingredient you wouldn't expect: marshmallow. This softens the candy and gives it that satisfying bite. Every Halloween season, you'll see bags of these colorful candies filling up trick-or-treat bags all over the country. Candy companies produce nearly 35 million pounds of candy corn every year, which adds up to around 9 billion individual pieces. That's a whole lot of candy. Candy corn has been around for a long time, and its recipe hasn't changed much since it was first created in the late 1800s. However, thanks to new technology, the way it is made has evolved quite a bit. Different companies might twist the recipe slightly, but the essential ingredients stay the same. The key ingredients include corn syrup and sugar, which give the candy its sweetness. Gelatin and soy protein are added to make the candy firm and help it hold its shape. Other ingredients like salt, honey, and artificial flavors and colors are also present to enhance the taste and appearance. A glaze of oil and wax is added to give the candy its shiny look. Another essential part of making candy corn is the way in which it is shaped. Cornstarch, a type of fine corn flour, plays a significant role here. The candy mixture is squirted into molds that are made out of damp cornstarch. However, the cornstarch doesn't end up in the candy itself, it's just used to form the shape. Candy corn is a fun, colorful treat that's been around for over a century. And its making has evolved quite a bit from the old days. Back in the 1900s, when it was first made, workers had to do everything by hand. And it was quite a labor-intensive task. They would start by mixing sugar, water, and corn syrup in huge kettles, heating it until it turned into a sweet syrupy base. To make the candy soft and smooth, they would mix in fondant, a creamy icing made from sugar and marshmallow, which made the candy fluffy. Once the mixture was ready, it was time to shape the candy into tiny corn kernels. Workers called stringers had the tricky job of walking backward while pouring the candy mixture into the molds shaped like kernels of corn, which were placed in trays filled with cornstarch to help keep the candy from sticking. They had to do this 3 times in order to create the 3 different colors of candy corn: yellow, orange, and white, while also making sure the colors didn't mix. Back then, this was such a tough job that candy corn was only made and sold between August and November. Over time, candy corn making became much easier thanks to machines. Today, the process starts with a mixture called slurry, which is basically a wet blend of sugar, water, corn syrup, and flavorings like vanilla. Just like in the old days, fondant is added to give the candy its smooth texture, helping it form tiny crystals as it cools. This slurry is what gives candy corn its melt-in-your-mouth feel. Overall, candy corn is made using a process called starch casting. Most of the candy-making process, including starch casting, happens inside a particular machine called the mogul. This magical machine handles key steps in shaping and forming the candy, making the whole process more efficient and smooth. First, a machine called a stacker puts trays onto conveyor belts. These trays are filled with cornstarch, which is treated so it sticks together just right for molding. Then a plastic leveler smooths out the cornstarch in the trays. Next, the trays move to the die part of the mogul. This is where the best part of making really begins. The die creates hundreds of tiny impressions in the cornstarch to shape the candy. In the meantime, the candy ingredients are mixed in large kettles. Sugar, corn syrup, salt, honey, soy, protein, gelatin, and flavors are all mixed and cooked to the right temperature. Each batch is made in 3 separate colors. You guessed it, white, orange, and yellow. Once the candy mixture is ready, it is pumped into the mogul. The mogul uses special nozzles to splash the candy into the cornstarch impressions. The process is done in 3 steps. First, the white candy goes into the top part of each mold. Then the orange candy fills the middle part, and finally, the yellow candy fills the bottom. This way, each piece of candy corn gets its classic 3-color look. After the candy is filled into the molds, the trays move to a drying area. Here, the candy needs time to set and harden. It takes between 24 to 36 hours, depending on the weather and how moist the candy is. The longer it dries, the easier it will be to separate from the molds. The moisture level is checked carefully to make sure it's just right. Once the candy is dry, the trays go back to the mogul. This machine flips the trays over and shakes out the candy and the cornstarch, which are then separated. The candy goes on to the next step, while the cornstarch is sifted to remove any leftover candy bits. The cleaned cornstarch is dried and sent back to mogul for future use. Next, the candy corn needs a shiny finish. For this, it's being sent to polishing pans, which are large, hollow containers. A glaze made from oil and wax is added to make the candy shine. The candy rolls around in the pans, rubbing against each other to get that glossy look. After polishing, the candy is ready to be packaged. It goes to the packaging machines that weigh the candy, put it into bags, seal and box them up for shipment. The entire process from start to finish takes about 24 to 48 hours, depending on the batch and factory conditions. Even though machines now handle most of the work, making candy corn still has the same sweet charm it always did. This classic treat remains a favorite, especially around Halloween. But did you know that in addition to the traditional yellow, orange, and white version, candy corn comes in a variety of other color combinations specific to particular holidays? For Thanksgiving, there's brown, orange, and white candy corn, with brown section being chocolate flavored. Christmas brings reindeer corn, which is red, green, and white. Valentine's Day has Cupid corn in pink, red, and white. There's even pastel-colored candy corn called bunny corn for Easter. However, while the colors might change, the taste and texture remain the same, a soft marshmallow-like sweetness that's surprisingly fat-free. Now let's have a quick look at how quality is ensured. Prior to any materials being used, they're carefully inspected. Microbiologists check them for harmful bacteria like E. coli and salmonella to keep the candy safe. The liquid candy mixture, or slurry, is checked to make sure it's the right color and texture. If the color isn't right, it won't be used. The mixture also needs to be of the right thickness and weight, so it flows properly into the molds. The temperature at which the sugar melts is also monitored. Finally, as the candy dries, its moisture levels are checked to ensure it's not too hard or too soft. In addition, the company tries to avoid waste. Cornstarch used to make the candy molds is collected, dried, and reused. If there's any leftover candy or incorrect slurries, they are often melted down and used again. Candy corn is a fun treat that's celebrated on October 30th, National Candy Corn Day. Over the years, new flavors have been introduced, from classics like peppermint and pumpkin spice to more unusual ones like hot dogs and roasted turkey. These new flavors keep candy corn exciting and fresh for candy lovers everywhere. Candy corn has been around for more than a century. According to the National Confectioners Association, it was invented in the 1880s by George Renninger of the Wonderly Candy Company. Its bright tricolored appearance, reminiscent of farm life, quickly became popular with people longing for a touch of the countryside. By the early 1900s, the Goelitz Candy Company, now known as Jelly Belly Candy Company, began making candy corn. This treat became a top seller for them and continues to be made by the company today. Halloween used to be the top candy buying holiday of the year. However, since around 2018, candy corn sales have been dropping each year. By 2022, only 12.7 million packages of candy corn were sold during the Halloween season. Today, the candy corn making process is much faster than it used to be, but it still takes careful attention to get the perfect blend of flavors and colors. From the first fold of sugar and corn syrup to the final polish of each candy piece, candy corn continues to be a beloved treat that captures the spirit of the season. People often debate what the best way to eat candy corn is, whether to start from the top or the bottom. What do you think? Share in the comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe.